You climb the last creaking flight of stairs, lungs burning, and shove open the door to your new home in the greatest city on earth. It's a single cramped room near the top of a tall, leaning apartment block. The floor isn't quite level. The walls are thin enough to hear the neighbors breathing. There's no kitchen, no toilet, no running water, and the window looks out over a canyon of identical buildings packed so close you could almost shake hands across the gap. This is an insula, a Roman apartment block, and for most of the city's people, this is the dream. A roof in Rome. Here's why that roof might kill you before the month is out. Start with where you're standing, because in a Roman apartment block, your altitude is your death sentence, and it works backwards from what you'd expect. Down at street level, the ground floor went to people with money, often nice shops and roomy apartments with actual amenities. The higher you climbed, the cheaper, smaller, and more dangerous it got. By the time you reach the top, where the rent is something a poor man can scrape together, you're in a flimsy little box crammed under the roof tiles. You took these stairs because it's what you could afford. Every step up was a step closer to the two things that killed insula dwellers by the thousands. Hold that thought, because we're going to come back to it, and it gets bad. First, the daily grind. The stuff that just makes life miserable rather than fatal. There's no water up here. Rome's famous aqueducts fed fountains and the homes of the rich, but that water did not climb to your attic. So every drop you drink, cook with, or wash in, you haul up those stairs yourself, in a jug, all day, every day. And there's no toilet. Let that sink in, because the solution is genuinely grim. You've got a chamber pot in the corner, and when it's full, you have two choices. Carry it all the way down to a public latrine or a collection pot at the bottom, or, like a great many of your neighbors, simply open the window and fling the contents into the street below. Picture the streets of Rome under that arrangement. People emptied their waste out of upper windows so routinely that Roman law had to spell out who was liable when someone walking below got hit by a falling pot of filth, or worse. Walking home at night meant listening for that telltale splash from above and hoping it wasn't aimed at you. The gutters ran with what came out of those windows. The smell in summer is something your modern nose genuinely could not handle, and you're living at the source of it, breathing it, stepping around it, day after day. That's not the part that kills you, though. That's just the part that makes the place unbearable. And then the sun goes down, and Rome gets worse. There's no streetlight, no lamp on the stair, nothing. When night falls on the insula, it is genuinely hand in front of your face dark, and the city does not go quiet. Carts that were banned from the streets by day come rumbling through by night, so the noise rolls up to your window for hours. Drunks argue. Somewhere glass breaks. The poet who wrote about all this reckoned that going out to dinner in Rome without first making your will was a sign of a careless man, because the odds of being robbed, beaten, or worse in those black streets were that real. So you stay in your box, and in the dark with you are the rats, fat and fearless, moving through the walls and the rubbish, carrying the kind of disease that races through a building where dozens of people are packed together with no sanitation and no clean water. Sickness in an insula didn't visit one room. It went door to door. That's the misery. Now let's get to the part that kills you. Take a breath, because here come the two horsemen of the insula. Fire. Your building is a tinderbox, and that is not an exaggeration. The upper floors were often built and patched with timber. The rooms were lit by open oil lamps, warmed by open braziers full of hot coals, and packed wall to wall with people cooking and burning things in close quarters. One knocked over lamp, one stray ember, one careless neighbor, and the whole structure goes up. And now your altitude comes back to collect. The Roman satirist Juvenal said it with brutal clarity, joking that when the alarm goes up from the ground floor, the last man to burn is the poor tenant up top, crammed under the tiles with the pigeons. Read that again. The fire starts below you and climbs. By the time you smell smoke, the staircase, your only way down, is already a chimney. There's no fire escape. There's no fire department coming to save your floor. There's just you, the flames coming up the stairs, and a long drop out the window. Fires regularly devoured entire districts of Rome, and the people at the top of the Insula were the ones who had nowhere left to run. And if the fire doesn't get you, the building itself might simply fall down on top of you. This is the one that should genuinely frighten you because it could happen on a perfectly calm day with no warning at all. Landlords threw these towers up as cheaply and as tall as they possibly could, cramming in more floors to collect more rent, using thin walls, bad materials, and foundations that wouldn't pass a single modern inspection. The results were exactly what you'd expect. Roman apartment blocks collapsed regularly, sometimes pancaking straight down with entire families inside, killing everyone in an instant under tons of brick and timber. Juvenal again captured the everyday dread of it, describing how a Roman walked through the city half expecting the buildings to come down on his head. You went to sleep in your rented box near the sky, genuinely not knowing if the walls would still be standing in the morning because the man who built it cared about square footage, not about you. So here's your week. You haul every drop of your own water up several flights. You dodge raw sewage in the streets and dump your own out the window. You breathe the stench. You fight the rats. You flinch at the constant noise of a city that never sleeps coming straight through your paper-thin walls. And the whole time, you're sitting on top of a flammable, badly built tower that could either burn from below or collapse from under you, with you trapped at the worst possible height for both. A week of that statistically, and you've been rolling the dice on disaster every single night. And the worst part? Almost nobody was ever held responsible. The men who got rich off these death traps, the landlords and the property speculators, face little real consequence when their buildings burned or buckled and killed the people inside. There's a famous story about one of the richest men in all of Rome who reportedly ran a private fire brigade and would show up while your building was actively burning to offer you a pittance for it, refusing to lift a finger to put out the flames until you sold. Then his men would extinguish the fire he'd haggled over, and he'd add your scorched property to his empire. Your catastrophe was his business model. The poor died in the fires and the collapses, and the wealthy quite literally profited from the ashes. That's the Rome the postcards never show you. Behind the marble temples and the gleaming forums was a vertical slum of leaning fire traps, where the price of a roof in the eternal city was paid in the very real risk that the roof would either burn down around you or fall down on top of you. The glory of Rome was built tall. For the people living at the top of it, tall was exactly the problem. If you'd have made it through your week up there, stick around, because next time we're heading into another slice of Roman life that looked a lot grander from a distance than it did up close.